back to another episode of Jacey's Creek. My name's Emily, and today we're doing Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And this is a podcast where we do episode by episode, season by season, scene by scene. That's always a tongue twister. To talk about Pacey and Joey as a couple and as individuals. Today we are doing season 9 of season 3. And I'm really excited for this one. And it came out on November 29th, 2000, so I believe, according to Wikipedia. And if you would like to get in contact with me at any point of this episode, make sure to follow my Instagram, that's Witter and Potter, my TikTok, that's Pacey and Joey, and lastly, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that way you don't miss any episodes that come out on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So without further ado, let's get into this thing. So, the first scene starts with scene 1 of Joey, and she is at the yacht club, and Joey's sitting on a bench doing some homework when Mrs. Valentine's come up to her, and Mrs. Valentine says, "I'm not paying you to study for your GED, dear." And Joey says, "Miss Valentine's, it's 3:45, which means I'm early. I'm 15 minutes whole early to do what I please." And why is it so hard for you to remember that I go to school with your son? Like, no. Then Mrs. Valentine says, "Yes, and speaking of things I just so soon forgot, I ran into your sister, Becky, at the drugstore. Clue or not, picked up on any coincidental." And Joey says, "It's Bessie." And Mrs. Valentine says, "Oh, well, that's important, isn't it, dear?" And a gentleman comes walking up to them, and she goes, "Walter." And Walter says, "Mrs. Valentine's." And Mrs. Valentine's goes, "What can I do for you, Walter?" And Walter says, "Well, I just wanted to make sure things was in order for Saturday night, Miss Val." And Miss Valentine's goes, "Oh, Walter, we are in tip-top shape. We are fully stocked and fully staffed. And I was just about to tell little Joey Potter here that her Saturday night off was now a Saturday night back on." And Joey goes, and Mrs. Valentine says, "Joey, in addition to being on one of the club's handsomest members, Mrs. Callanty here is about an altar rep for Worthington, and Saturday night he's hosting a network party for promising new applications, and I was going to need your help to wait." And Joey says, "I can't." And Mrs. Valentine says, "So you're quitting then?" And Joey says, "No." And Mrs. Valentine says, "Oh, you gone insane." And Joey says, "Look, Mrs. Valentine, I will be there." And Mrs. Valentine says, "Yes, you will. Now, Walter, where were we?" And Joey says, "I think you're not understanding this, Valentine's. I'll be there at the party as a guest." And Mrs. Valentine laughs, and Walter says, "Wait a minute, you're Josephine Potter? Hey, it's a pleasure to meet you. Your essay was outstanding. Mrs. Valentine, this young lady is one of our most promising applicants." And Mrs. Valentine goes, "Oh." And Walter says, "I would appreciate if you give her the evening off. This young lady is one of our, I would appreciate if you give her the evening off and set her at my table." And Mrs. Valentine says, "Yeah, well, of course. Walter, anything you need. I don't know who's going to get to replace her." And she goes, "Joey's such a shining member of our wait staff." And Joey says, "Well, there's always Drew." And Mrs. Valentine says, "Yes." So it's clear that Mrs. Valentine's is like completely like Joey's one of those poor kids who can never afford to be at Worthington, and it shocks her that Joey is actually applying to Worthington, which I found is very funny. And obviously the yacht club is full of rich people, and Mrs. Valentine's obviously does not associate her with that thing. And I don't know, like, there's a lot of things that I think about with this part of this scene. Like, yeah, I get that Joey's like this poor little girl, but like, why does Miss Valentine's have to be such a jerk about it? Like, I get it, I do, but I'm like, something's not right here. And when she's like, "Oh, Walter," I'm like, I get that Walter's some like rich man, but he doesn't act like nearly as bad as Miss Valentine's does. So then we have scene 2 of Joey, and she's at a clothing store, and Joey's trying on a dress, and comes out from the dressing room and walks over to Gretchen where she is waiting on her. And Joey goes, well, and Gretchen says, the girl can't help it, she's beautiful. And Joey says, do you think it's too much? And Gretchen says, only if Pacey wears his camouflage pants. And Joey says, which isn't exactly outside the realm of possibilities. You know, I do feel bad for dragging him to this thing. And Gretchen says, oh, you're not dragging him to anything. You need his support, I'm sure he gets that. And Joey says, yeah, well, I just don't want him to feel out of place. And Gretchen says, Joey, my brother is nuts about you. I think he plans to make a career of being in close proximity to you. Just don't let him get his nervous stroke telling that thing that he does. You are, however, going to miss a great party at Dawson's house. So, I kind of find it funny that, like, Gretchen is invited to Dawson's party and like that kind of stuff, but also I find it funny how much Gretchen knows how much Pacey loves Joey. It's pretty clear, like even to like Pacey's sister, who's only been in this like 9 episodes or something, she even knows how much Pacey cares for Joey. Like it is one of my favorite parts about Gretchen is maybe even Gretchen heard about Joey before. Like, obviously she met Joey before, but, like, maybe she's even known more about her because of how much Pacey probably talked about her. So, I also find it funny that, like, she says that he's planning on making a career out of you if he could, because even him, like, he says, like, in episode 4, where he goes, like, I plan on, he's like, if you think that, like, you're mad about being on top 4 just because you're afraid of losing me, and you have nothing to worry about. That's what he basically said. And so now even Gretchen kind of confirms it even when Joey is not drunk. So it's pretty obvious how much Pacey talks about Joey. And so Joey says Dawson's Leary's having a party, and Gretchen says, not so much. I talked to Mitch and Gail, and they're letting me organize their holiday party. And Joey says, really? I love those. I mean, they have been a part of my life since I was like 5, I think. And they always put me in the right mood for the holidays, which is weird considering Dawson and I pretty much just hide out in his bedroom and watch old movies. And then Gretchen says, which is their own distant charms. I mean, Dawson is one of those rare guys who somehow make popcorn and rented if videos seem like an event. And Joey says, I know what you mean. And Gretchen says, you're doing great. And she says, you're doing great, Joey. And Joey says, huh? And Gretchen says, Saturday night, you're doing great. You're gonna do great. And I love how Gretchen goes shopping with Joey. Like, that is my favorite part. Like, the fact that, like, Joey is so close to the Witter family in so many ways. That's amazing. So then we have scene 1 of Pacey and Joey. And they're in the high school hallway, and Joey and Pacey are walking down the stairs and talking to each other about Saturday night. And Pacey is obviously not happy about this. And he says, do we have to? And Joey says, yes, Pacey, we have to. And Pacey says, well, have you thought about hiring an escort? Because from what I'm told, you can't take me anywhere. And normally, like, Pacey kind of complains about these things, and I don't think it's like him like complaining just to complain, because Dawson would complain either way. I think it's mostly because he doesn't want to feel out of place when he's like knowing that he's not going to go to college, and that's what Joey means about the last scene where she goes, I just don't want him to feel out of place. And it's kind of sad that she knows that he'll like say no in a way, but not really at the same time. But she says like, you have to do this for me. She knows, like, yeah. And I like how Gretchen's like, without a doubt, he'll do it for you. And so Joey says, I called around, but they're like all out socially present man meet. And Pacey says, 'cause what if I just broke up with you? I mean, what would you do then? And Joey says, look, do what you have to, you're still coming with me, Pacey. And Pacey says, fantastic. And Joey says, scaredy cat. And Pacey says, are we at least going to have a good time? And Joey says, my guess is no. And Pacey says, so why can't we say nah to the whole idea of hanging out with the prep school colleagues and go over to Mitch and Gail's party? And Joey says, Pacey, that would be sincerely diminish my chances into getting into college. And Pacey says, well, when you put it that way. And Joey says, Pace? And Pacey says, yes. And Joey says, you know how important this party is to me. And Pacey says, yes, I know. And Joey says, and being in a relationship means sometimes you have to do things that you don't particularly enjoy for the other person. And Pacey says, yeah. And Joey says, you know, for me, that would be Sunday dinners with your parents. But I'm like, hold on. Like, they do Sunday dinners with his parents? And this is what I mean. Like, I feel like she's so close to Pacey's family, and I could never. Like, I could never, because I'm so awkward. I'll be like, this is awkward. And how Pacey responds to this, he goes, oh, hold on. Do you think I enjoy those dinners for 1 second? For the record, we could stop at any time. And Joey says, look, I know you're still trying to get out of this party. And Pacey says, yeah, I am. Is it working? And Joey says, it's like watching a train wreck. And she takes his arm and she wraps it around him, and they walk down the hallway and she kisses him on the cheek. And I love that scene. I love how much Pacey protests, but Joey's like, you're not getting out of it. He loves her so much that he would never get out of it for her. Even when they're not together, Pacey still goes to these parties, which is my favorite part. Pacey loves her that much, no matter what, and he would literally do anything for her. He would rent a whole wall for her. He would build a whole B&B for her. He would teach her how to drive. He would even beat up a guy for her. Oh, sounds familiar? We may have talked about that before. So then we have scene 2 of Pacey and Joey, and they're walking, they're walking hand in hand and down the stairs, and Pacey says, you okay? And Joey says, sure. And Pacey says, you know, we could always just turn around, which would, of course, be incredibly cowardly. And Joey says, yes, incredibly appealing. And she goes, you sound like you're grinning like an idiot. And Pacey says, yeah, I know, I can't help it. And Joey says, why? And Pacey says, because I'm the only guy at this party who gets to walk at Audrey Hepburn on his arm. I love that so much. Later in season 5, I think, or season 6, Audrey in the show actually refers Joey as Audrey Hepburn, which I find is funny. And I also find that's funny is I never really thought how much Katie Holmes did look like Audrey Hepburn. And I'm a big fan of Breakfast at Tiffany's. I haven't really watched her other movies. I really been wanting to. And I just found out that Breakfast at Tiffany's is a book. And I'm trying to listen. I listen to books rather than read it. And it's not that good than I thought it was going to be. It's so confusing. So I just kind of gave up on it, but I'm probably going to continue just to say that I read it. So then we have this third scene of Joey, and she's at the Cape Side Yacht, and Joey is talking to one of the other girls at the party, and she's incredibly uncomfortable. And the girl says, and I will not lose any more sleep over the fact that my class rank was 3rd. I mean, it's like I tossed and turned all night wondering what I did wrong, you know? Why am I not good enough for 1st or 2nd but 3rd? I mean, what is that? So, what did you place? And Joey says, 4th. And the girl goes, oh, that's good. Yeah, 4th is good. And she looks over and sees Drew serving drinks and pours the rest into hers into a plant. And she says, oh, cute boy. Yeah, I do believe I need a refill. And Joey says, let me get that for you. And the girl says, nonsense. Excuse me, waiter boy. And Drew goes, yes, annoying girl. And the girl goes, yeah, I'll give a club soda with the lime in it. And she goes, please. And then Drew goes, anything for you, Joey? And Joey says, fine, thanks. And Drew says, there you are, Potter. I never got a chance to thank you for ruining my night. And Joey says, well, I think you can probably talk about it another time. And Joey says, sure, how about midnight? Just in case to watch your back and to turn into a pumpkin. Did you know that Joey here is one of our finest waitress? I think it's sweet how you taken her under her wings. And the girl says, oh, you know what? I think I see this girl that I know from boarding school, so I'm gonna go say hi to her. Excuse me. And the girl leaves, and Drew looks at Joey and shrugs, and Drew says, how bad do you want to body harm right now? Oh, later. Too many waitresses. I find it funny how much Drew just wants to, like, punch Joey at the moment. Like, I don't know, like, I feel like Miss Valentine's took her seriously, but, like, if it was a big yacht club, wouldn't they have more waitresses or something? Like, couldn't they hire more people? And it was obvious when Miss, like, Valentine's hired Joey in the first place, like, it was pretty clear how much she didn't want to hire her, but then she realized she doesn't have enough people to, like, be able to hire, because Cape Side is such a small town. Like, do a yacht club for crying out loud. Like, it is not a small town. So then we have scene 3 of Pacey and Joey, and they're at the yacht club, and Joey and Pacey are sitting at the table with Walter, and Walter tries to strike up a conversation, and Drew is serving the table, and Walter says, "You've certainly been quiet tonight, Miss Potter," and Joey says, "Just soaking it in all, Gus." And Walter says, "Why did you tell us about yourself?" And Joey says, "There's not really much to tell. I'm pretty much your average teenager," which, Joey, like, you could have said, "Oh, like, my sister and I run a B&B," and she could have made it sound more appealing, but instead she says that. Like, that is the only thing you say. Like, you could have said something more like, "Oh, my sister and I, we run a B&B. We've been doing it for about a year. I spent my time studying and doing homework, but I really enjoy those things," and she could have said something so fancy. And Walter says, "Having reviewed your application, I hardly think so. I seem to think if a certain form is for art. Have you been into the new Clintons?" And Joey says, "No, I have always wanted to go to New York." And Drew says, "It's actually in London, son, Spain." And Walter says, which isn't very important. What is, however, is the building itself. It's the most amazing piece of construction. It is extraordinary and combined of interesting shapes. Its components, and I don't know how to say that. And Pacey says, "No, I don't know. You asked me, the thing is just a whole big artichoke." And everyone stares at him, and Joey just looks at him, like, horrified. Like, she's like, "You're gonna mess this up for me. Like, are you kidding me?" Like, it's kind of like one of those, shows at the moment where, like, you have the boyfriend who says one wrong thing, and the girlfriend just looks at you, looks at the boyfriend like, "Oh my god, you're about to ruin this for me." And typically they do, but Pacey does not at the moment. And he says, "No, I'm serious, it does." And Walter says, "Oh, you've been?" And Pacey says, "No, well, my brother has. He's the biggest architect buff. And into the coffee tables art books, you know? I've never seen all the pictures, and I'm here to tell you, it's the biggest artichoke." And Walter laughs and says, "Big artichoke, you're right. That does seem like a big artichoke." And then, while Pacey is telling the joke, it goes into the next scene where Joey looks completely uncomfortable. And Pacey says, "So the rabbi says, Renton, I dare to kill them." And Walter laughs, and Pacey says, "Good one, right?" And Walter says, "It's very good. Joey, I had no idea your boyfriend was such a charmer." And Joey goes, "Who knew?" Joey, you knew really well. And I think Pacey's doing a good job. It's kind of like when they say fake it till you make it. Like, Pacey is actually doing a good job about, like, he is faking it until he makes it. And he's doing a very good, fine job about that. But Joey's just like, I know he's lying, so therefore, oh my goodness, how dare he lies. Joey would do terrible at this, but Pacey did a good job. And Walter says, "Worthington could use a young man like you, Pacey. Why haven't you applied?" And Joey goes, "Yeah, Pace, why haven't you?" And Pacey says, "Well, to be perfectly honest, both of my parents are big lefties. For me, it's Yale or nothing." And Walter says, "Well, that certainly is our loss." And Joey says, "Hey, Pace, can I talk to you for a second?" And Pacey says, "Yeah, sure." And Joey says, "Outside, excuse us." And he goes outside. I love how, like, when he turns over and he looks at her, Joey just, like, does this big smile, and you can tell that she is angry. And so then we have scene 1 of, like, then we have, like, scene 5 of Pacey and Joey. And they're outside the yacht club, and Joey is pulling Pacey behind her as they walk out onto the piers. And Joey says, "Pacey, I cannot believe you just did that." And Pacey says, "Just did what?" And Joey says, "You lied." And Pacey says, "Hold on a second." And Joey says, "And after the whole painless, motivated demands, you flat out lied." And Pacey says, "Joey, can I hop the floor for just a second?" And Joey says, "Pacey, why are you trying so hard to impress these people?" And Pacey says, "Are you done yet?" And Joey says, "Look, I don't even know who you are right now." And Pacey says, "All I'm trying," and then Walter comes out, and he's like, kind of like, what's going on? Walter says, "Excuse me, Pacey. Excuse me, I would love you to meet the dean. Do you mind, Joey?" And Joey says, "Of course not." And Pacey says, "Sure." And Walter chuckles and says, "He's a great guy, an old friend. I would love for you to hear," Pacey says, "2 rabbis?" And Walter says, "Yeah." And they laugh. And he says, "I thought they would have a good one." And Walter and Pacey go back inside. And it's funny to me because, like, Pacey wraps his arm around Walter and, like on his back. And Joey's just standing there so sad. And she leans against the rail, and, like, she is, like, so upset. Like, I think one of the reasons why she's upset isn't the fact that, like, Pacey's doing all this. I think she's upset because Pacey can, like, impress him and lie to him without any hesitation. And Joey's like, "This is what I'm trying to get," and Pacey isn't taking this seriously. I think that's what's going through her mind. So then we have scene 4 of Joey and the Cape Side yacht on Club Pier, and Joey is leaning against the rail of the pier crying when Walter comes up to her, seeing that she has dried her eyes to hide the fact that she was crying. And Walter says, "Hi, Joey." And Joey says, "Hi, Mr. Quincy. I'm sorry. I think I need to apologize." And Walter said, "Really? What for?" And Joey says, "Well, I think I blew it tonight, and it's just this kind of whole new world for me, and I apologize. I don't really know what to do or what to say, and I know I don't really fit in." And Walter says, "Joey, you did not blow anything. Your application record stands on its own. You're a stunningly bright young woman. No one is grading you on your social skills. Be as may, you could have just asked for a better character witness, that your boyfriend of yours. Seriously, he talked to the dean's off all about you, how you changed him and how you helped him, how he couldn't imagine a better life than you by your side. What a rare gift to have someone say such things about you." That is so freaking cute. You know what I mean? Like, so Pacey is basically going off on the dean and being like, "Well, Joey is this, and this." And he may have messed up, but I think Pacey's in his head, he was like, "Well, like, I could just, like, wrap it on and, like, say, like, everything about Joey and know that, like, I'm not gonna, like, I'm the one who they're gonna remember, but, like, Joey is my girlfriend." So at the moment, like, he was like, if I say everything about Joey and how much she means to me, then at the end of the day, it's gonna be better, and she's still gonna be by my side, and he's still gonna be by her side. So everything works out there. And I love how he goes, "What a rare gift to have someone say such things about you," which is true. Like, but I love how Pacey is like, "You changed him," and how you helped him. Like, those are 2 important things, like, that Pacey talked about. And I love how, like, impressed the man is about how much, like, he is saying all this different kind of stuff. Like, how he's like, that is a rare gift for a teenage boy to be like that. And even when they break up, like, he still does that. Like, it's like, oh my gosh. Okay, so then we have the next scene, which is scene 5 of Pacey and Joey. And they're inside the yacht club, and Pacey is standing by the fireplace when Joey comes up and is walking up to him and gives him like this huge hug. And I'm like, oh, they made up. And Pacey says, apology accepted. And Joey says, I did not apologize, Pace. And Pacey says, well, no, but you were going to. And Joey says, I was. And Pacey says, yeah, you were going to apologize for bitching me out earlier. And Joey says, and what about you? You're the one who lied. And Pacey says everything that I've been trying to say this whole episode. He goes, did it ever occur to you that maybe I was doing that all for you? And Joey says, and how exactly do I benefit from your distrust of the truth? And Pacey says, well, maybe I just wanted these things to people to see you through my eyes, just for 1 month, 1 night. To see these girls, this woman, who's had more class and intelligence and beauty and grace than anyone who walking on the face of the planet. And maybe these things, like, just tumbling out of my mouth because I happen to be head over heels to the girl to be in love with you. But the scary thing is, I think that they're true. And Joey says, sorry, Pace, I just wanted to impress these people so bad, to fit in, and I'm completely froze. And Pacey says, hey, that doesn't matter. And Joey says, yes, it does. I never wanted something so loud in my life. And you just fit in than I will ever be. And Pacey says, because there's nothing at stake but me here. Joe, I have nothing to prove to these people. And Joe, this world is opening up doors for you. And you step in, you're going to have an amazing part in this. And wherever you go, you are going to do them a favor, not the other way around. And Joey says, your mom should get a medal. And he goes, my mom? Really? Why is that? And Joey says, because she raised a perfect boy. And maybe these things just tumble out of my mouth because I happen to be head over heels in love with you. But the scary thing is, I think it's true. And they kiss, and he says, okay, what do you say you take our little milkville musician on the road? Please can we go somewhere where we both fit in? And she goes, yeah. And Pacey says, thanks. So I think at this moment, my favorite part about this whole scene is how much Pacey is like, for 1 night, I want them to see what I see for you. And he knows that Joey is the smartest person. He knows that Joey loves art. He knows that Joey spent 3 months with him on the boat. So he probably knows so much about her, like her daily routine, her night routine, the way she would get angry, the way she would do this, the way she was probably moody at this point, but then she does this. He knows almost everything about her, but also they've probably known each other since they were 5. So there was a huge difference there. And he wasn't trying to impress these people to impress him for himself. He was trying to impress these people for his girlfriend. And I have to compare Dawson and Joey and Pacey and Joey at this moment because there's a huge difference. I think that Dawson would never do this. I genuinely think that if Joey cried in front of Dawson, or even if she asked Dawson to join them, I think that he would not go. I genuinely think that. And it's really, really weird and awkward and all that different kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's just weird because there's so many things going on. But I'm like, are you kidding me? You're generally going to make this whole thing up. But this is so cute. This is adorable. And also in this episode, when they go to the Leary's party, they see Gretchen and Dawson kiss. And I think if Pacey was not Joey's girlfriend, I think he would still do this. I think he would do everything to impress this person because for all his life, he basically loved Joey. There was parts where he knew that he couldn't be with her, and he even says it, the thought of being with you was a possibility that could never happen. And now that he is with her and she loves him and he loves her, he can go up to whoever. He can go to the dean and be like, hey, this is my girlfriend and I love her so much because 6 months ago I never had her, but now I do. And it's the best thing that has ever happened to me. And he can talk about all her art and he can talk about this, but I think if Dawson was in this situation, he would have just gone home. Like, he wouldn't have, if he saw Joey crying, he would have been like, let's go home. He would say no because it's Christmas party. Like, let's be real here. And I feel like at this moment, it's just weird, and it's just like, okay, like, that's what it would have been like. But like, Pacey, he just tops it off 100%. And that's why, for the millionth time, I said, that's the 100% reason why we love Pacey. And one of my favorite parts is when he says, did you ever think I was doing that all for you? And Joey's like, excuse me? And she just, you can tell that she just does not expect it at all. And then he, like, when he says, like, well, I just wanted people to see you through my eyes, to see this girl, this woman who has been more intelligent in beauty and grace than anyone who has walked this face of the planet. Like, where can I find a guy who says that? Like, where can I find a guy who would accept me into a school and go wherever I want to go because he just loves me? Like, that is, I have to say. And it's just, every single time we go over, like, Pacey and Joey's scene, and Pacey does something like that, I'm like, Joey, how could you possibly even think about Dawson after he does something like this? How could you possibly go over, like, thinking about Dawson? But then again, like I've said a million times, like, Pacey's love language is acts of service, while Dawson's love language is, like, words of affirmation. I actually have a funny story about that yesterday. Yesterday, I was talking to my best friend, and we were talking about love languages, and I was like, and she was like going through like a fight, and she knows that I do better by texting people, and so she gives me the phone, and she says, be nice, and I'm like, okay, and so she's like, you're so much better than I am about this. I'm like, probably because my like love language is words of affirmation, and she laughed, and I'm like, and yours is like act of service. Like, you want people to do something for you because you care about it. And I feel like Pacey reminds me so much of my two best friends because I feel like they would do this, but Pacey just goes, obviously he's a made-up character, but in our heads, in our hearts, we know that there's a guy like Pacey out there and there's a girl like Joey out there, and there's always that one guy who goes beyond and beyond for a girl who he loves, and I want a guy like that. So, if you like this podcast, please make sure to come back on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. Make sure to review this podcast, give it 5 stars, leave a kind review, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that's Jacey's Great Podcast, and leave your thoughts down below. You can put a thumbs up if you like, but please leave your thoughts down below, whatever you're thinking about this episode or a past episode, or even a future episode that you'd like me to mention. And lastly, if you have not already, make sure to follow my Instagram, that's Witter and Potter, my TikTok, that's Pacey and Joey,